All right. Hey, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome to another session here of HR Heretics. Really looking forward to this session. I think we've rescheduled it probably 4 times, which means it's going to be incredible, right? The longer you kind of wait for something. Sally Thornton is joining us today, who's been a friend of mine for a long time. I think more recently we got closer and have been chatting, but Sally's been in the game for, geez, what, 26, 27 years in total.
100 years.
100 years, yeah, since starting in '98 and has kinda done it all. Tons of HR leadership roles, advisory roles, board work, and has owned her own firm for almost 14 years. So you started Forshay, Sally, in 2011. That was around the time where I parlayed out of kind of the public company into venture. I heard of Sally and I was like, "She's so cool. What is this?" I was a baby, didn't even know what was going on, and you were wonderful. I very much looked up to the work you all did, and you've been doing it for almost 14 years. Fractional work, all sorts of exec search, org development, team building, kind of all of it, and we're stoked to have you today to talk about the ups and downs. I know you and Nolan wanted to talk about like the joys of starting, a company and what that feels like through turbulence, which I have not done. So I'm excited to listen to this and just talk about fractional work, which I have done and would love to chat on that and a bunch of other stuff. So welcome.
Thank you. It's a joy.
All right. So Sally, like the way I pitch Forshay is you guys are doing interim placements and executive placements. Is that right?
It is. Oh my gosh. Although I will say, like, I create this little speedometer because I feel like it's hard to explain what we do. And I'm like, make great teams, executive search, we do interim, and then we make teams great. So that's kind of that team performance side. So it's a little bit like, I mean, it sounds holistic and like airy fairy, but it's actually like how you do great teams is you have to think about the whole team.
Yeah. So intrinsically makes sense. Like I built a business that was doing this too. What I found building Continuum is that every executive wants access to fractional opportunities.
Yes.
And yet there is, I would say, still significant resistance from the demand side. So from companies. And what we found with the demand side is there's like a big trust barrier to overcome if it's coming like if the person's coming from a marketplace and not from a trusted intermediary.
Yes.
So like whenever my VC intros me and they say, "Oh, like talk to Nolan," people are like, "Oh, great. Like the VC introed me. Like I trust them. I'll talk to Nolan, even though like maybe I don't like fractional and stuff like that."
Yep.
Versus when it comes from like a marketplace or a not trusted source, it's like, I don't know. And then I'd say the second piece is there's something around like you're either with us full time or you're not on our team.
Yep.
And that feels like a very antiquated view. Like, what have you guys learned about fractional and how is it working?
Thank you. It's a great point. So relational is the what matters most. Like if we don't have a great relationship with the client to be able to figure out who is the best talent, right? Because we are figuring out that. So we are the VC without, I mean, VC money, right? So we're giving them the trusted source. And so when we give a client a slate of talent, so if they say we need an interim CPO, I say chief people officer. I don't just say CHRO. Then I'll say, here's Kelly, here's John, here's, Jane, and here's the strengths of each, and this is how we know them. And then they can figure out, oh, okay, actually, I really like the strength of this person, but this person costs way more. Why is that? And we can have a conversation. So that relational thing, what the reason I think we've stayed in business this long through 3 recessions is because we can give them more than one choice. So we're kind of like a mix between a marketplace where you were giving a lot of choice and just like if the VC doesn't love that one person, that's like not a great search experience where it's like, do you like them or not? It's too binary. So we're kind of that middle place. So I think your point is right around relational and why we've survived, 3 downturns. In terms of mindset of the buyer, so companies want all in. Like we're still in the all in mindset. Now that has of course been up and down with the economy. So, when things were really hot post COVID, they would take anything with a heartbeat, right? Was like in. So then I think the market flooded with fractional people. They were like, I can name my price, I can live my best life. Tons of clients want me. And it created this expectation that that was going to like stay there because they haven't gone through the ups and downs of what Kelly was saying, which is like we've seen it like a lot of different ways. So the demand and the supply for sure have been out of equilibrium, and the supply is demanding. Like people are exhausted. You know this. You two have probably had your own, sprints and recoveries. And so I think when executives get exhausted, they think fractional is the answer. But clients are still like, "Oh, I only want people who are not exhausted. So therefore I want the all in." So what I try to figure out is like of the mindset of the client, is it maybe not just one person? Like, how do you just kind of open the aperture and say, oh, I need Kelly to do this strategy here, but I actually need a comp person to do this thing over here. And then do you have like a recruiter, but we don't need like 100 jobs. We need like 20 targeted jobs. Maybe it's an interim recruiter. So we try to think a little more modularly. And that's the way to get around the client saying, we have to have one person who can do everything 80 hours a week. It's like, really?
Yeah, there's something about, like, the blind marketplace, Nolan, that's I think hard for folks, like, what Sally said, you're not really a market, you're an agent.
Yeah, we're an yeah.
Like, I know these players, like, here's what you're getting, and that's like blind dating, like, you blind date versus a trusted friend who knows this person, and I don't know how you build that unless it's just time, sweat, and tears. I mean, you've been building that for 14 years plus. Way more.
Yeah, but Kelly, my point though is like on the so like a lot of people are trying to do that. Like I tried to do it. True is building True Bridge, right? Like it's not just like multiple people are doing it. And I think what I learned is that the TAM is a lot smaller than I expected. Because for me, it just makes sense to be able to like, okay, Sally is world class at this thing. I can't hire her full time. I should tap into her for this thing on a fractional basis. But companies don't think in that way. At least venture-backed tech companies don't think in that way. Some do, but it's a very small fraction. And my question is like, why? Like, I still don't have a great answer after like building a business in this for 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, look, I mean, I didn't try to build the business, but I could just talk to you from my side of it, which I am a fractional right now. I think the TAM is actually high. What happens, like, what I've seen and heard and what I would do, to be honest with you both, is, like, once that company has relationships with people, they don't need you anymore. Like, they might not go to the marketplace. They don't go to Sally or to Continuum. They literally have their Rolodex, and it becomes a micro network. For example, if and when I leave Quizlet, I am fractional here. Again, not through a marketplace or, it was through a trusted person, a relationship. They are gonna ask me first, "Who can replace you?" So I don't know how we break that, but that's kind of what I'm seeing. So I think the demand is high for people who have lived it successfully. And there's also a lot of like, let's be honest, there's a lot of people out there that are like, I'm fractional, and they're just not, they're not great. And people get burned, and then fractional becomes branded, not the person.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And even here, I'll tell you, they were like, I love this people team here at Quizlet. They were like, "We didn't really trust it." We were like, "That's not gonna fucking work because we need someone who's all in, and we need." And I do think on the HR side, it's a little more bit more difficult because anything you do touches every part of a company. It's a little different than hiring a bean counter, like a finance person fractional. They didn't trust it, and I do think it takes, I'm not trying to be air, but I do think it takes a special combination of person to come in and build trust, get some wins, and be able to do this. Otherwise, it's kinda makes it harder.
That's right. That's right.
Go ahead, Sally. What's your view on that?
Yeah, when they get burned, they brand the whole approach as wrong. I totally agree. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Nolan?
Well, so okay, so Kelly, you said it. So I was gonna say it, but you said it a lot nicer. Now I'm gonna say it the way that I think I see it. So VC hiring market falls out basically in April of 22 is like when we saw like a really big hit in our business. And then everyone started getting laid off, and everyone who got laid off did this thing where they went on their LinkedIn and said, "Now I'm fractional." And what ended up happening was Fractional went from this like very elite thing that only like, call it like the top 5 to 10% of people had access to,
Right.
to now everyone's saying they do it. And now it's actually an adverse selection problem. Like if you say you're fractional on LinkedIn, I now think you suck.
Yes, I get it.
Ooh, wow.
I get it. It's like, I'm gonna slap this on, or I'm gonna be an executive coach. Everyone's an executive.
Oh my God, you could fall over executive coach down Palo Alto.
Do you wanna know what I think the dirty secret of fractional is? And I'm gonna be really honest here. Like, honestly, you guys, there's really no fucking such thing as fractional. Like, if you come in and just say, "Well, I'm 20 hours a week and I can't go to that meeting," or "No, I'm not gonna do that," you're kinda out. Like, the secret of fractional is to try to build so much trust and influence and understand this business and what needs to be done so well that you can do a full-time job in 25 hours. And I think that's where a lot of fractional people fail, is because they've kinda done it once, or they got laid off or fired, Nolan, they weren't that good. They try to come in and do this with boundaries that just backfire in their face. And then that hurts them, makes the company not trust fractional. I do believe it's doable. I don't believe a lot of people have skill sets on how to do it, because that's the secret of doing it well.
I totally agree. This skill set you mentioned. So the difference when we do executive search versus interim is in executive search, right? We're looking for that long-term relationship, all the things that you're used to with executive search. I don't have to, preach to you about executive search. When it's interim, we interview differently. We're like, how quickly can you build trust? Like, tell me examples of how quickly you can get in, get shit done. How do you manage boundaries? How do you manage expectations? And boundaries isn't like, I can't do ... Boundaries is this a priority? Are the priorities shifting? How do we negotiate that well? What are your skills around influence and negotiation? Like, that matters so much more. And then also, when you get the trust, how do you bring in the next person so that you're not trying to do 80 hours of work and expectation in 25 hours? And by the way, for us, fractional doesn't mean always part-time. Fractional of like 40 hours a week feels part-time for a lot of people who used to work 80. So, like, we do have some full-time fractional people because they find 40 hours to be a freaking walk in the park from what they're used to. So,
And this is why I think you all are so good at Forshay, because, and Nolan, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I do think it's a different craft. I think it is a whole different beast of talent that I don't think has been properly recognized as such and interviewed for as such. Like, I think most of the world, every average Joe or Jane, would consider fractional to be synonymous with part-time.
yeah, which is not. The other thing I will say is we've noticed that the people who do well in it tend to be people who not only have those skills of negotiation, influence, building trust, but who have consulting backgrounds. I got people from Deloitte, Accenture, people who know how to scope a project, who know what they can deliver on a certain time frame, know how to bring others along. Not everyone has that. It's one of those things that, when you see it, you recognize that pattern. But like, if you've come up through recruiting and you're just used to working all the time, I don't usually find that to be fantastic in terms of managing boundaries. So one of the things we do is we try to coach. We didn't have to coach you when we worked with you, but sometimes we'll coach the consultant. If they've only been on the inside, we'll coach them how to be a good consultant, because it's, to your point, it's a different game.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors. Your workforce is your organization's greatest strength and often its largest single expense. But without the right tools, understanding where your workforce spend is going or how it impacts your bottom line can be a challenge. That's where Planful comes in. With Planful, HR and finance teams get the clarity they need to make smarter workforce decisions, gain real-time visibility into workforce fluctuations, forecast with confidence, and adjust talent acquisition plans collaboratively based on costs today and into the future. No more guesswork, just data-driven insights to help you plan with accuracy. And the best part, Planful is fast and easy to implement, so you can be up and running in weeks, not months, with minimal IT support. Plus, as your company grows, Planful grows with you, providing endless runway for strategic workforce planning at any scale. Ready to take your workforce planning to the next level? Join over 1,500 organizations already using Planful. Visit planful.com/heretics to learn more.
I must admit, I used to believe that AI didn't actually exist in recruiting or HR. That is until my friend Heather Doche, who leads talent at Signalfire, told me to check out Metaview. I got into the product and was like, wow, AI actually does exist in recruiting, and this product is sick. Metaview is the world's #1 AI scribe built specifically for recruiting. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations, like intakes, interviews, and debriefs, then provides perfectly summarized notes of everything that was discussed. I've seen firsthand how tough it can be to extract consistently high-quality data from candidate conversations. I've been in debriefs where interviewers told us about their feelings instead of what actually happened in the interview. And I've seen VPs and CEOs block hires because they didn't learn anything from skeleton scorecards. Metaview changes everything. With perfect notes from every conversation, your people can focus on creating a human connection with candidates, and they can save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. But it's so much more than just a time saver, because perfect notes means perfect data. For every candidate and every pipeline, hiring teams can make confident, informed decisions, and talent leaders can finally take control of the interview process. Metaview covers all your compliance needs, works with all your existing tools, and takes less than 3 minutes to set up. Join talent leaders at organizations like Brex, Deal, HelloFresh, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts. Tell them that me and Kelli sent you. Or you could just go to their website and get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes.
What about the buyer, Sally? Who's primarily like the buyer that you're working with?
So certainly if it's a smaller company, it's the CEO. If it's a mid-sized company, it can be the head of HR, whatever we call them. We also work with CFOs. We work with CMOs. The larger companies, we do work with the big companies. We're working with, VPs. So like, I don't really care what the title is. I just care, do you have a budget? Do you have a problem that we can quickly solve? And are you not an asshole? Like that's our market. That's our total addressable.
This is what I found. So with early stage companies, they say like, because they can't hire well. So that's why they think about fractional, right? They don't have access to the talent pool. They'll never be able to hire you because you're not going to go work for a seed or a Series A company. And so it's like, oh, great. Like I can tap into, like they get the rationale, but then every time with an early stage company, they're like, okay, like Kelly's only working 10 hours a week. I actually need 40. So I'm just going to try and squeeze 40 into 10 and like ruin Kelly's life. Then for the later stage companies, there's kind of like this issue with ego to where like, Johnny, who's the VP of Eng, like really needs like a director to come in and help him solve this problem. But if he actually like goes and asks for that budget, he looks like an idiot because he can't hire that person or like, whatever it may be. It's just not thought of internally the same as FTE spend, even though it can be significantly cheaper. So how do you overcome like those sorts of objections and issues?
It's actually one of the reasons we've loved working with finance the last year. We don't have to explain how much money we are saving to a CFO. And with the chief people officer, we have to be like, remember that benefits load and remember bonuses and stock. Like you're not paying any of that. We have to remind them because they take that hourly rate and they times it by 2080 and they're like, oh my God, this person's making so much money. And I'm like, oh my God, have you forgotten how the balance sheet works? So no, finance people are better clients, to be honest.
That makes total sense. And so, okay, let's talk about the hourly rate for a second. So how do people price themselves and what do you find as effective strategies?
So I told a few people we were talking about this soon, and they're like, no one ever talks about money. Like, well, what's going on? What do like? It's the most nebulous thing as far as like the rates and whatnot. So I'd love to hear from you both.
Yeah, well, that's the first thing Kelli and I we caught up again. I was like, let's talk numbers. So we're weird. We actually are transparent. So we have a transparent pay structure between our clients and our talent. It's 65-35. So our talent makes 65, we make 35. Some people genuinely think that's reversed. I'm like, no. We only make 35.
That's a pretty big rake. That's a pretty large rake.
So are you 1099 when you did a marketplace or are you W-2?
1099.
Yeah. So we're paying taxes, we're paying all the insurances. So people don't know how to do the they're not putting their quarterly taxes in. So what happens is when they go for the 1099, because it's like only 20%, if it's an 80-20, what was your margin?
We were doing 15%.
Yeah. Okay. So that's great. So if you're only doing 15-20, but you're not paying all those expenses, then the consultant that, at the end of the year goes, holy shit, I have this huge tax bill I haven't thought about. And small companies don't care about the insurances, but if you're working with medium-sized companies to larger companies, they need you to have all that stuff. So our actual, so gross margin of 35 is not much, right? It's like the app store because we're an employer. So our net margin is not very much. So what we do is we say to people, it doesn't matter, Nolan, if you're a better negotiator than John, because everyone gets the same. And that matters for me because in the data, women don't negotiate as well for themselves. They negotiate better for others, but not as well for themselves. So if you have a consistent pay structure, then people aren't worried, are they negotiating well with you? And I want both the client and the talent to feel respected and that it's a win-win. So the only way to do that is have transparency. So we say to the client, what's your budget? And obviously, 80% of the time they're like, I have no idea. Tell me what the market will bear. So we say to the talent, what's your price? Like, what do you need to earn on a W-2 basis, right? Because we're doing the taxes. And then, they usually start higher. Like they might be like 300, 400. And I'm like, okay, you're not going to get a 40-hour week work. Like we start to negotiate with them around what are your true needs? Do you want more work at a lower price or higher paid work with fewer hours? Like what actually is right for you? And then with the client, same thing. Like we're basically trying to make that market where both sides say, oh, this is a win, right? But the rate can be as low as, we don't go below $100 bill rate just because we're in that more senior level work. But yeah, we're open about rates with everyone. I think it's really important.
So when you say $100 bill rate, so that's like 65 going to the exec and then 30. Okay. So that's really interesting. So where do you think average clearing price? Because every exec who's listening to this right now is like, I want to do fractional work, but I have no fucking idea what I should charge. How should I think about it? How do you tell them to think about it?
So if they haven't done the work at all, I mean, it depends on their level. So if they're director level, I'll, usually $100 net. So, right. So they're making $100 an hour, but again, we're paying our side of the taxes. That's still a $200,000 job where they have the flexibility, the benefits, et cetera. Most directors will be okay in that. Some people want 150. CPOs will want, up to 300. We have some who can get as much as 400, but then they're not working very many hours. It's more advisory. So it goes back to like, are you advising or are you rolling up your sleeves and doing a lot of the work? And that's where a lot of the trade-off happens in rates.
I just want to be clear because I'm used to like not getting benefits. Do you know what I mean? Not being W-2. So it's just a really important distinction I want to put on there. Like you all are offering those items, which are expensive. It's better tax treatment.
In California, you legally have to if you do the work that we do, right? And most of the companies, if you go to Forshay's website and you look at our clients, most of those companies will not employ 1099. So what will happen is if you go individually to them and say, oh, I'm going to be your maternity backfill for this role, they're going to put you through a shitty payroll provider who's going to take a cut and provide you no coaching, no negotiation advice. It's going to suck.
Interesting. Okay. So the other thing we noticed is there's like a honeymoon phase for these engagements. And so, like first couple of weeks, like, oh, like, especially if you're smart executive and you get a quick win, right? Like you build trust early, like that shit's great. And then typically what happens is the company tries to like extract more out of the executive. The executive tries to give like a lot because they're still trying to prove their worth and build trust. And the company just basically, you give them an inch, they fucking take a mile. How do you guys handle those things?
So this goes to us screening to make sure that the consultants are really consultants and they can manage that. They will use us as a sounding board. So they might come to us and say, hey, such and such is asking for X. What do you advise? And we'll be a sounding board to them. But most of the time, Nolan, we have people who are more like the Kellys who are, I know how to handle this. Like we don't have to, I'm not going to say babysit, but like we don't have to advise as many of our people because they already have those chops. We're looking for people who know how to consult versus who are employees and are just using to grind. If they're just used to grinding and they don't have those skills, they usually burn out and we can't save them. Like there's some middle ground of like, we can coach them a little bit, but if they require a lot of coaching and they're going to just be a recipient of grind, then they're not great for this role.
Kel, what do you think?
I like that phrase, a recipient of grind.
like you and I talked about this, right? You just said it to open the show, which is just like there is no such thing as fractional, right? There's companies need you to be all in. I mean, your Quizlet gig is intense. And so I don't know, like I struggle with this because there was a number of like really high powered dope execs who were very consultative on our platform. And still these companies are trying to like, squeeze them like the end of a fucking toothpaste bottle and not remember like all the value that they're delivering with what we had already agreed to. Kel, what do you think about that?
Yeah, this is where I think it really has to come on that exec, to Sally's point. This is where, like, you both can do so much to help these people. And I'll be honest, I don't care if you're making 300, $400 an hour. Like, you got to suck it up a little bit. Like, we talked about this, Nolan, when you're wanting to be a consultant and go on your own, like, you got to give away some free stuff to get out there and build trust and build commitment. Like, I probably gave away some dollars that first month, and I grinded and I was like, "Oh, geez, what just happened here?" But that goodwill is really important because now we all heard about, like, my mom, like, when I need it, I'm like, "I can't come to this meeting. I gotta do this." It's okay. And so I think whether you're an entry-level employee, a big powerful executive, a consultant, like, no one can be too big for their britches. Like, you gotta sometimes put down the ego and grind and be a part of the team and earn that no matter what you're doing. And that's how you get branded. That's how you can be a trusted fractional versus these people that just don't really wanna work. They slap it on. Like, you have to work.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that though, Kelly, is if we open up the aperture. So I think most of the time what we've been talking about is if there's an open role and they're asking you to fill an open role, then they're asking you to be essentially the equivalent of an FTE, right? But that's not all the roles. There's a lot of roles where it's like we might have an open role and we need something for that, but it might be that like they're in scaling mode. That tends to be more where we get called, and they need like a person and a half. And so they might have a person in role and they need that extra half, right? Or they might have a person in role and they need another whole person because they're scaling so quickly. So there's a lot of ways to think about fractional that is about growth, not just about are we trying to not hire an FTE and therefore squeeze them and treat them like an FTE, right? That's like a different model than just also like how are we adding people quickly with the right skill sets for a certain period of time, because no one can be perfectly staffed. No company can be perfectly staffed. So as they're going up and down this, I mean, economically, we should always be doing what Peter Capelli called talent on demand, right? It's like that's the economic model that makes sense. And that's why CFOs and CEOs tend to be better at like thinking about the more modular way versus just like, I'm not sure who to hire from an FTE perspective, so I'm going to hire this fractional person and treat them like an FTE. That's when it gets tricky.
And I think it also goes back to the relationships we talked about before. So when I came in here, it was kind of like, and they didn't have budget for headcount. And I was like, listen, we need these two roles. And here's how we're going to make it a zero sum game and, net hires, but this won't work, and you don't just come in there and say that, right? It was after a month of doing things and whatnot. So, and we left it open where it's like, hey, let's do this for a few months. Because of the great relationship, we can revisit the hours, the contract, etc. So I just think, Nolan, like, don't allow yourself to get squeezed out of the tube. Sometimes you gotta, make a bigger tube, and you can't just walk in there and bang your chest and do that. You actually have to, what I'm saying is, give something to do that, but you shouldn't suffer forever because that's not fun.
No, I agree. And I think what you're talking about, Kelly, is exactly the right approach, which is you have to like go build trust, get a couple wins, and then have a come to Jesus conversation. Sally, how do you assess the executives on your platform, and how do you tell companies to assess them?
So we're not a platform. So they basically come to us and they have like a conversation like they would with Deloitte or McKinsey. Or my joke is like, but we actually like get shit done. Although I have friends there, so love them. So it's a conversation about like what problem are we solving and how might we solve it? So it isn't so much like I need X, give me X. Rarely does a client totally know what they need. Like usually they come with like some set of problems and we help scope it with them. And so like one of our values is co-creation. Like let's figure out what you actually need and then we will send you 3 people who match 80% of what you're looking for, and you decide what trade-offs you want, like price.
Sorry, I mean executives on the candidate side of the marketplace or candidate side of the business.
So how do we assess the candidates?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's behavioral interviewing. It's like behavioral interviewing with that extra layer of can you consult if it's the fractional side, right? Because remember, we do 3 things. So yeah, so then we look for influencing skills, ability to be more like a project-based thinker versus just a grinder. Like we're looking for a metacognition person, someone who thinks about how they think, right? Who can prioritize and push back, who understands the business, because if they don't understand the business, they can't push back with good data, and is really good at EQ because they have to be able to understand that even if they have the most data-driven approach, like this is why we should be hybrid, or this is what emotionally they have to be able to connect with the leader and have that ability to build trust quickly and then also read how to be effective.
Okay. And then how do you tell the company to assess those candidates?
I mean, usually the companies are going to do it the way they do it. The only thing I say is from a fractional side, I do have one difference. I say, don't look for 100%. An executive search, they're always looking for 100%. And with interim, I'm like, if they're at like 75% of what you want, go. Like it's progress over perfection.
Oh, like not 100% of time, but 100% of want.
100% of skills. So like if they're like, oh, we need comp of blah, blah, blah. They need to know of sales of this and they need to know biotech specifically and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, they have 75% of what you want. Just go. like,
Wait, so executives take that answer and they're like, yeah, like, because that feels very counterintuitive to me.
tell me more.
Because like, well, I mean, every exec you talk to is like, I'm not going to lower the bar. Like what you're essentially saying is lower the bar for fractional.
So different. So if they didn't have skills like the key skills of like influencing, good communication, 100%, that's just like, I think that is hygiene.
You're talking about the nice to have stuff, like the
Yeah, exactly. Like they're like, if you have a job description, they're like, I want them to have this kind of industry experience. I want them to have these 3 things. They must have stayed there for 5 years each. Like all the things in executive search that are ridiculous. We're like, all you need are key skills of this, get shit done, easy to work with, go. Like it's much more about progress than it is like, this person needs to be loyal to me and stay for 3 years and, all that stuff. It's like, no.
Yeah, but you did say like technical skills. And so anyways, our finding on this was everybody wants to have everything. And, I think like the scoping on the client side, like when you're working with a potentially new client is actually really hard and challenging. People don't understand it unless you've done it. And Kelli, you've done this with like building your own personal business. But I just find client expectations, even with, trying to like set them appropriately, often the problem is that the expectations far exceed reality.
Yeah.
And that's the same is actually true in executive search, but makes it harder for fractional because you're just like, I'm only going to be here for 15 hours a week. Like, what are we talking about, guys?
Yes. Well, again, it's not always part-time on our thing either. So it isn't always the part-time. It's the like, we're more in the get shit done. Like one of our jokes, we should have like called ourselves get shit done company. Like fractional, which means like onboarding quickly, whether it's 15 hours a week or 40 hours a week, or even we've had some people bill hourly at 50 to 60 hours a week, right? The key is like, can you just get moving versus like interview for 6 months, 3 to 6 months for some job. Usually the reason we are successful in that, Nolan, and there's plenty of times we're not and we don't get the job, is because they are much more focused on get shit done than they are on perfection. So those are the clients that kind of are more gel to us is like, can you help us? Like, we need to go. And we're like, great, we're perfect for you. Like, we can get that done.
I like that framework. I think that's actually a good framework for all people who are thinking about doing fractional, which is just like when you're assessing, because you should be assessing clients. You shouldn't just be like, great, let's get into bed and start working together. That can actually really damage your reputation. Like assessing for, do they have problems? And are they thinking about, like I used to say, is thinking about the problems in the jobs to be done framework. Like, what is the problem? Let's just try and solve the problem. Don't think about anything else. Just think about problem solving, I think is a really good way to think about it if you're an exec.
Yes, you've been doing this since 2011. I don't even think I could spell fractional, let alone new fractional people. It just really wasn't, at least I didn't consider it as a thing. And now, to our conversation earlier, kind of it should be a new LinkedIn banner, like fractional. Like, what has changed with you all? Like, how have you handled this influx of fractional people? How do you tell good versus not, and maybe more of an angle for advice for people who are fractional trying to work with you.
So we used to call it interim because it didn't, back to your point of like, is it a fraction or is it a whole, right? Because the fraction could be 1.2x of their time.
They mean different things in terms.
Right, right. So we think more interim. The way that we used to think about it before was like, it was, to Nolan's point, kind of like someone's not there. So maternity backfill, or someone quickly resigned or had a health issue and we would plug someone in. It was much more like, whole peg go. The fractional is a good term in the sense that it's more modular. That's kind of where I prefer, is like the modular. And the market has gotten better. Like, I had to get a freaking TED talk about flexible work 10 years ago because people didn't even know what I was talking about. So now at least the market knows what we're talking about. Like, I don't have to lecture them, which I'm sure no one loved anyway. I felt like, this is the future of work. And I mean, I used to have people like literally kind of like want to tap me on the head. That's so cute, flexible work. And I'm like, I think it's everything that's really coming. So now I don't have to adjust like what it is, which is great. But I think the modular consulting is going to remain true and important in the future of work. Meaning, what problem are we solving, Nolan? That's the question my team asks every time we get on a call. What problem are we solving? And how might we do it without thinking about an open job, a human, but actually open up and say, what problem are we solving? What skills might we need? Maybe it's 40 hours a week of this person. Maybe it's 30 hours a week of this skill set. And just thinking more like that, modular and experiments, that's kind of more of the direction that we advise both candidates and clients. Like, we actually kind of see them very similar because we're working on this like triumvirate. Like, how do all three of us solve a problem in a way that we go like, that was awesome. That was some of the best work of our lives. Like, that's my North Star, is people saying that was some of the best work of my life, right? Like, it's totally possible, but the framing matters. That's why I think it is a little bit more consulting.
Yeah. When somebody comes to you and they're like, "Hey, I really want to do fractional work," and you're like, "Okay, great. You've never done it before. You've only operated in-house. You seem like kind of consultative, but like, I don't know." What do you tell those people? What's your advice to them?
I mean, until we get to a real gig. So frankly, I don't love taking all those calls. There's too many calls I could take. I could be on calls like that all the time.
Yep.
I basically say, until I have a real gig to talk to you about, like, let's just put a pin in this. Like, thank you for telling us your interest. We got it. And we're thrilled. And then when I have a client need that fits something that matters to you. So what I ask them is, what are the things that matter to you? Is it the CEO? Is it the culture? Is it your commute? Is it the number of hours? Like, is it your pay? It can't be all of it. Like real estate. Like, you can't say like all 10 things. It's not going to happen, right? So what are the key things that matter to you? If we see a project that meets several of these, we'll give you a call and then we'll diagnose quickly as to whether this person's going to work in this scenario, because there's too many scenarios. There's like some scenarios, right? Every CEO has their crazy. So like, we have to figure out like if that crazy will work, and I can't figure that out on the first call.
Yeah. Here's a real question. I hear everyone bitching all the time. I sent my stuff in. I had a great chat with Nolan or Sally or Third Bridge or whoever the fuck it is. I didn't hear from him again. I don't believe them. My stuff goes into a black hole. Like, what the hell's happening here? Does it really go into a black hole, or are they just not great? Like, what happens?
No, there's just more, back to Nolan's point, there's more supply than demand.
Exactly.
Your eye is definitely on them. It's just,
Well, I mean, they're in the database. Is my eye on, we have 10,000 people in the database. No, my eye.
Exactly, Sally. Like, people don't get that. Like, Kelli, this is actually the problem with this model. It's a huge problem for us, which is executives are used to this white glove executive search experience.
Yeah.
To where it's like, especially when you're available and open, like, yeah, you should be expecting to be treated kind of like, "Oh, let me open this door for you, ma'am, and come right this way." But in the business that Sally's in, it's like, you're a number. And in fact, Sally, let's be really honest, for people who don't have experience, you're probably never going to call them because your list is so goddamn long of people who you've already worked with, who've done great work. And so only if they're solving a very specific niche problem will you pick up the phone and call them. Isn't that the honest to God truth?
Oh, yeah. So what I say to them is like, I don't want to waste your time. I will honor your time by when I see something that fits, you will get a call. Now, anyone, to Nolan's point, anyone who's already worked with us is always the first call. If they're busy or not the right fit, we go to the second rung. So it's like anything else, right? Like you go with your trusted people first, and the people who come in, we need them because some of those other people have retired, they've made their FU money, like it's a constant, like we care about getting new talent for sure, but we just can't meet with them all until we have a live project.
This is brilliant because I didn't ask the question to tee this up because I just not that smart today, but this is perfect because it does tee up the exact point I want to make, which we've talked about so many fucking times, Nolan, is you cannot rely on other people or companies or platforms to get you stuff and network for you and get like we've had lunch, I can help you because of the legwork I did myself to network, and then that has other great effects and this and that. Side note, if you want to get time with Sally, buy her lunch, maybe a martini lunch, but that nothing replaces that. And so when I have friends that call and complain about this black hole-ness, it's like you can sit around and complain about this, or you can actually do some legwork and you know what I mean?
Oh my God. Kelli, like highlight that, bullet, double underscore, bold it, like that. It's so interesting because Sally, we got it all the time when we were running Continuum, which is kind of like the empty feedback. I would describe it as empty feed because we didn't give a shit, which was like, oh, like they never called back. And it's like, well, like I haven't seen you get a job recently. So is that my fault too?
I mean, to be honest, it's a gift to them. Like, why would I call you if I have nothing to say? Like, until there's a market need that they could address, it's just, like friendship, which I have wonderful friends. But
Yeah. I just view these things as working in tandem with great people and companies like you both have and had versus you all working for me. It's a big mindset difference that I think is really important.
well, and to be honest, anyone who's kind of a complainer, like, aren't our people anyway. So
Well, to be honest, there's not a business there.
you have to have some resilience. Like this business, Andrea and my team, she's hilarious. She always talks about like people have got to like really be able to roll with it. I can't remember the term she uses, but like they have to have some spine, they have to have some resilience. And if they're like, "What have you done for me lately?" Like, swipe.
Yeah. Speaking of resilience, my last question for you, Sally, is how have you kept this up? Like this treadmill of this work you've been doing is almost 15 years and it's been through all of it. And you said yourself, you were kind of in front of it at some points, getting tomatoes thrown at you at TED Talks. Like, what's changed? Like, how have you evolved this over the years? How do you keep up the relationships? Like, what are some of the secrets?
Running experiments, like, never being too tied into one thing. So I've done really cool work called Work Lab, where we design thinking that made works better. I'm now doing some work with Leslie Perlow at HBS around how do people have the most fulfilling lives. Like for me, it's about like following my North Star, which is curiosity, incredibly smart people who are also kind and generous. And if I'm in the learning space with the right people, like whatever emerges, we will find the bottom line. And so far that's happened.
Awesome.
I love that. Sally, this was a blast. Thanks so much for educating us and also our audience. I think this is like one of those honest conversations that people haven't heard that they need to hear. And so I hope if you're listening to this, like your biggest takeaway is like nobody's managing your career except for you. Sally's here to help and can serve as a little bit of like auxiliary, but like she's not your agent, and agents for executives don't yet exist.
It'll be really interesting to see where all this fractional stuff goes or ends or grows. I just don't know. So thank you so much, Sally.
It was a joy. Anytime we can laugh together, I'm in.
Same, same. Thanks, Sally.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.